Awesome. So, welcome to another episode of Into the Mind. I'm your host, Marlon Johnson. And before we get started, I do want to make sure that you are following me on Instagram. Got to do that shameless plug at Mindset Marlon. And this is where you'll be able to stay up to date with everything that we got going on. We do host local meetups, we go out door knocking, and I do investor hikes every Sunday. So, if you want to keep in contact, if you want to know when we're doing that kind of stuff, follow me on Instagram. That's where I'm going to post about it. Don't expect me to text you and remind you. Don't expect like anything fancy because I just won't remember. So follow me on IG. That's where you'll get hooked in. And remember, if you have a house that smells like cat pee, it's falling apart, or it's literally on fire right now, I want to buy that house from you. So 516-220-3671. Give me a call. Even if the house isn't yours, maybe it's a neighbor's or a house you saw up the block, take the address down, give me a call, and if I end up buying that house, I will pay you a finder's fee just for telling me about it. So let's get into it. Today, my guests are Corbett and Tristyn of TK Property Solutions. I hope I said your names right, by the way, guys. And
Yep.
awesome. They've absolutely been killing it in the real estate game. This husband and wife team down in Hawaii, aka the happiest place on earth, has been showing their real estate journey on social media consistently. And I feel like I'm actually flipping houses with you guys based off how many videos you're dropping, and you're just showing the process. I mean, you show everything from how you're doing the business to your seller follow-up calls, the remodeling, and everything in between. Your content is so much fun to watch. You keep the family involved. And today I want to deep dive your story and learn about what it's like working in on an island, really, where there's just a small pool of business and a small pool of people to work with. And I also want to dive deep about how you are working together as a couple and what you're doing to avoid potential pitfalls. So, guys, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah,
We're
what's up,
excited
man?
to be here. Yeah.
Super excited.
So, before we get into the real estate stuff, I am so curious. How did you two meet?
Oh, that's a good story.
That is a good story. Go for it.
We met because my mom was his boss. So I was doing my practicum or internship, one of those for my master's program. And my mom headed a substance abuse residential treatment center for several years. She actually just retired. And it was easy for me to do an internship there. And his desk sat right across from my desk. So we just stared at each other for several months. And then I slid into his DMs.
Yeah, so I was a counselor at the treatment center, and her mom was my boss. So I had a really good relationship with her mother, and all of a sudden she popped into the equation, and I was like, who's that? I talked to her mom, and her mom loved me. So I actually got like an in from her mom.
My mom was like, oh, he has such a good family. He's so smart. And I was like, okay. She's like, yes, the grass is green on that side. I was like, okay.
I love that. Oh my God. So like you got to just like build rapport by connecting with mom first. So it wasn't even like a cold call kind of situation. You were already like warmed up, prepped. I freaking love that.
Yeah.
You have an energy about you guys. Like seriously, like it's a very genuine dynamic. Sometimes you see almost like a couple on social media and it feels like, are they forcing it? Nothing about you two seems forced. And that's why I was so curious. I was like, oh my gosh, like they genuinely look and feel happy. Like, awesome. So you guys are killing.
We tried.
Yeah.
So what got you guys into real estate? I'm curious, like how did that whole journey get started?
So both of our families have been in the real estate world, I guess you could say, but they never made it a career. So his dad worked at the bank for several years and now heads Harry and Jeanette Weinberg Foundation, which is one of the largest land owners in Hawaii, in the state. And then my family has owned real estate since the beginning. And so my family has several rentals and stuff like that, a commercial building. So it's always been there, but we were like, how do we do what our families have done and take it to the next level? And then shortly after having our son, I was sitting on the couch and I saw a commercial for fortune builders. They come to Hawaii, they hold these seminars, and I was like, babe, we have got to go. Like, we need to do this. So that's kind of how we got started, was through fortune builders, and it taught us a lot of foundational stuff, but we needed a little bit more. So we just kept learning. We found paces, mentorship, and the rest is history.
Yeah, she 100% dragged me into it. She pulled me in, and I mean, we, after the first like few months, we were just like totally hooked.
Mm.
I tell everyone that she unlocked my hidden passion. Like I didn't realize how passionate I was about this business that we're in, and she really pulled me in. So I'm another thing that I'm super grateful for.
Oh, that is super cool. And it's funny because like sometimes like the fortune builders and like the Robert Kiyosaki, you like to see groups, they get like a bad rep. But you know, I think they do one thing really well, regardless of anything else. They get people interested and they kind of spark, right? They give them that jump start. And people may say like, hey, it's overpriced. And even if it is overpriced, if it gets you going down that road and it turns into so much more, then that's just the cost of tuition, right? So
1000%.
super cool. I'm happy to hear that you two took that, you ran with it, and you're actually able to find out that you have a passion for this, because watching you two on social media, again, like that comes through. It doesn't look forced. It doesn't look like you're trying too hard. It's like, no, like you're genuinely enjoying every moment of every single day. So I am curious to know, right, that Hawaii is, at least from what I've heard, it's a pretty expensive place to live, right? The market can be super competitive. And I mean, you're on an island, right? You can't really go out and source anymore. So what's it like working the Hawaii market?
This is his arena.
Yeah. So I mean, it's a difficult, unique, special market. There's a number of different things kind of at play, right? So we have super high price points. Our median home price is just under $1 million. Wow. So along with that comes a pride of ownership, and people aren't really willing to let go of investments that they make that are that large, right? So that paired with limited inventory, we're almost always in a seller's market here. It's really difficult to find deals. And so when we got into this, we actually were told that from a lot of other investors. We're like, don't come into this market. It's a super difficult market. Like, you're not going to be successful here. But Tristyn and I were born and raised here. We love this place. We drive around all the time and we see these distressed homes, right? And we're like, okay, we know we can do this in our backyard, you know? And I'm a firm believer that as long as you're super consistent and you do something over and over, eventually you can make it work, right? So we put our head down and got our marketing out there and our systems in place, and we've just been trudging forward. You know, it's a difficult market, but I mean, I feel like you can do business in any market.
Yeah. I also feel like what makes Hawaii unique is the relationships. And in any successful business, it's all relationships at the end of the day. But in Hawaii specifically, it's all who you know, it's all the relationships that you have. And it's, aloha at the end of the day. It's treating people with respect, it's treating people with integrity, and that shows through. And then that really helps perpetuate your business forward. So, I mean, in Hawaii, there's a small group of us investors. A lot of them are in the mentorship too. So it's pretty cool. And we just help build each other up. And then whatever has worked for them can work for us. What connection do you have here? And sharing resources, I think, is also a key ingredient to making our business successful here in Hawaii.
Wow. You know what? I couldn't agree with you more, right? And that's something, you know, we were just talking about it a little bit before we started the show. I'm from New York, right? The same sort of market dynamic. And what you two just said is something that if people are saying it, I wasn't hearing it in the very beginning, which is in these crazy competitive markets, in these higher price points where it's basically always a seller's market, it's much more of a network heavy market. You need to be talking to everybody. You have to collaborate with the realtors, with the title company, with other wholesalers, other investors. Everybody needs to be working on deals together because the deals are going to come more through word of mouth, through the grapevine, through someone's aunt just told the mailman about something going on, and the mailman reached out to his friend who's in real estate, who then picks up the phone and calls you because they've been watching your content on social media, right? And they say, hey, let's do this deal together because I have no idea how to work it on my own because there are so many moving parts and we don't know how to bring all of it together. So I think that is crazy important. And I'm happy to hear that you guys are really tapping into that and you're exploring that. So when it comes to, I would say, networking and connecting in these larger markets, what are you doing or what have you found has helped you to source deals and to find, I would say, the right people to collaborate in your space? Like how have you been going about that? Is that something that's been accidental or is that something that's a little bit more systematic and thought out?
I think there's a couple things that we're implementing right now, but people always say here in this market that the realtors are the kings, like they own the Hawaii market. And so that is true, right? So what we have done is just nurtured and build tons of relationships with realtors. We're consistently, so every week I reach out to 10 new realtors and talk story with them, tell them how I can add them value, what I can do, how we work, and try and build those relationships. We have a few that work really closely with us on our team, but we're doing a deal. We're just finishing a deal that came from a realtor referral. They ran across a property. It was a hoarder property. The owners didn't want to put any more money into it. That realtor had heard of us, right? So they reached out to our realtor, and our realtor showed us a property and we ended up buying it, a pocket listing, right? So we have other investors in our circle that all of their business, they do 7 to 10 deals a year here, and it's all realtor referrals. So getting those pocket listings before they go live on the MLS. So that's one thing that we've been building. Another thing is I've been building relationships with junk removal companies. So it actually stemmed from that hoarder house.
Yeah.
We were like, okay, we got to get this junk out of here. Who do you first think of? A junk removal company, right? So we called them, and I looked at her and I looked at my wife and I said, babe, we can make something out of this. There's something here, right? We need to build a relationship with these guys, show them how we can add them value, and they can send us leads. They're the first people at the houses when the owners have made a decision to sell. And then as we dug into it, it just made sense. Most of the time when these junk removal companies are going out to bid a job, they don't get the job. So they're going out and bidding these jobs, they're seeing these opportunities, but they never get hired. So the value we can bring is we come to the table, they send us the lead, that's it. I do all the work on the phone, lock up the deal, and if we get it, we'll hire them to do the junk removal and we'll pay them a referral fee. So we added value to them and they're like, okay, let's do it, So that's another source of referrals for us.
Yeah. And then one more is we try to hold meetups. We held one a couple months back. We're going to hold one again in July. And so, and having those meetups be open to everyone, not just experienced investors, because a lot of those were going on and those are great. Those serve like a mastermind, higher level networking purpose, but opening it up to the community at large, just people that are interested in investing, like like Pace says, you're creating a little army of people that can bring you deals, and you guys can JV together and you're educating along in that process. So those have been really, really important for us as well.
I love that, right? Because, first off, those all apply to like a market like New York, right?
Mhm.
And what you said there, as far as working with realtors, the first thing, right? You said working with realtors. And I think so many investors, especially the ones that are newer in the game, get it in their mind that we don't work with real estate agents, right? It's almost like they're over here and we're over here and we can't communicate, we can't talk together. They don't understand us, we don't understand them. And it's silly, right? Because at the end of the day, we're all in the same industry, right? And instead of looking at it like, I'm doing a deal against them, I should be doing a deal with them. Why
Mhm.
not? Right? Why can't we all work together and get a deal done together and change the language, right? Hey, let's go do a deal with an agent, not get a deal from an agent, but do a deal with the agent, right? What's wrong with them making money if they bring value to you? So I absolutely, absolutely love that you even said, this other agent, you didn't say she reached out to you or he reached out to you. You said they reached out to your agent, which was even
Mhm.
cool.
Mhm.
It's like, yeah, why would you not have an agent? Awesome, right?
Mhm.
And then the junk removal, you guys, like one day I was in the sub two group and I saw you make that post and it blew
Mhm.
my mind. And I said, holy crap, they're onto something. Like that is next level genius that I don't think I ever heard anyone else talk about. Right.
Mhm.
And, you said something that made it click. Right. And you said this, I'm going to reiterate it for the audience. You said that when the junk removal people come to a home that's a hoarder house, right? Typically these people, when they're still living there, they don't actually want to get rid of the stuff. So the junk people come, they get these appointments, they get these leads, they show up, but then they don't actually get hired because this person is still in arms and they still live there. So now if you come and you purchase the home, guess what? Yeah, like, I mean, I still got to get this stuff out of here. So why would I not hire you that brought the lead to me? So that was like key and clutch. And hopefully people really picked up on that and are actually going to take action with that information. And then, finally, hosting those meetups, I couldn't agree with you more. Like the high level meetups are super cool. We all want to connect with the Pace Morbies and Steve Trangs of the world. But, like it sounds like you guys found what I found as well, where the newer people bump into opportunity way more often. And they're the ones who need help closing the deals, who need help moving the deals. And that creates a place for collaboration and partnership. So when people will say like, "Yeah, I don't really want to talk to the new guys," I'm like, the new people are like literally bumping into opportunity all day long because they have
Yes.
no clue
Yeah.
what they're doing. They're just taking action. So
Yes.
yes, you should be catering to them. So
100%.
that's so cool. I love that you guys do that for your community. So as you've been doing the meetups, right? What's been the experience so far with people coming out? How's that been going for you all?
COVID made it a little interesting, right? And Hawaii's been super, super strict. I think we only opened up where you don't have to wear your mask outside and you can finally gather in like the last month or two, right?
Yeah.
Like it's been super strict, but we just wing it, we always just wing it and figure it out. So it's been great, and there's all walks of life that come out, and you meet so many people that can bring value. And a lot of the times they're like, how can I bring you value? Like, for example, there was a guy who showed up. He was the first person at the meetup. He came early. He was like, I'm in the neighborhood. He works for Hawaiian Electric in Hawaii. That's a gold mine. Like, what? You have connections at Hawaiian Electric, because we're upgrading electrical, we're having to involve them. So people don't realize that they can bring value just by meeting one another and talking story. And I think Kamohai has been in contact with that guy saying, like, this is what you got to do. And then it kind of ties into social media and our purpose of being loud on social media, because you never know who's watching and how much money you can raise from social media to fund deals, and the connections that your audience, who you're really meeting and you don't even know it, and they'll reach out, and it's just amazing how the collaboration can just unfold organically. It's just so cool.
Yeah, you know what? And actually, I want to speak about that, right? Because again, you two on social media, you have been loud, like, and in a positive way. Like, it's entertaining, it's educational, and it's inspiring for anybody who's watching because they are getting to see you go through the journey day by day, and they're also seeing that you're not total robots, right? You've got a family. Like yesterday, the Father's Day post was super awesome. I was like falling up over there, like that was cool. You know, so how has social media been changing your business, and is it something that you found out on accident? Like, what's that been like for you, the social media journey aspect of your business?
It's monumental. It's such a game changer. I think once you get out of your head and you realize that at the end of the day, whoever needs to see or hear the content is who you're trying to reach, not all the other just noise makers. And you stop focusing on that and you're focused on like, how is this going to help somebody? It's huge. He knew the power of social media because his first passion before real estate was photography, and he grew a pretty substantial following on his photography page. So he knew the power of it and how you have to be consistent, you have to be engaging and all that stuff. And for me, I was like, I don't care about any of that. I don't care about that. But once I really took it seriously and started consistently posting, which it takes effort, it does, and it takes time and it takes thought, but it's so worth it because you just can, like I said, you meet so many more people and you never know who has what and how you guys can collaborate. And the doors that get opened just from you posting about your day is amazing. It's amazing.
Yeah, I think, like she said, I did see the value in it. And just like everything else, we have a ton of mentors, right? And the ones that we really, really admire, we're like, okay, you guys got to get on top of this social media thing, right? Like there's so much value, right, in social media. So one of the biggest things for us is we both come from a helping background, right? So we love to give back, and we see so much value in giving back. Social media became that outlet for us, one of those outlets. So being able to do what we love, but also give it away on social media has really come back tenfold. So I think in the beginning, so one of the big things was raising private money, right? So we've raised a ton of private money through social media, and all we're doing is sharing our story. We're sharing our story, our passion, giving value to whoever needs it, right? But in that process, people are asking us to take their money, right? To use their money, to make them money. So it literally has become one of our biggest ways to raise money, but it is also fulfilling something in us, letting us give back. So
yeah, totally. That's so important to us because in the beginning, like he said, people were like, you can't do this. Or, even our family was like, yeah, but what are you talking about? Like, how are you going to do all that? How are you doing this? That doesn't make any sense. We had a lot of deterrence, people telling us no and not lending a helping hand. And we said, we're going to do this business regardless. And as we start to get traction and momentum, we just want to share whatever we can with open arms and help whoever we can, because that wasn't the case when we first started. We felt very alone. We felt like being on an island, and we made it our mission to not be that way. We never, ever want to keep all the information to ourselves and be out here. We just want to, like I said, open arms, however we can share is what we want to do.
We're literally just normal people. When we started our first flip, we had no money. Like we just had a passion and a desire, and we knew that this was the path that we were going to take. And we're like, let's figure it out. So we started to figure it out, and all we want to do is share that with other people. Like she said, when we started, everybody was like, don't do it, you're gonna fail. And it's upsetting to me because I know the possibility and potential, and everybody can do it, right? Yes. So being able to share that, social media is just that perfect outlet to do so.
That is so cool. I love that you look at it too as a way of giving back, right? Because that's really what it is. When you really analyze it, you are giving back because people are being inspired, right? People are being motivated, people are being educated, they're being entertained with the videos that you put out, right? And you're giving to them on so many different levels, right? You're showing the transparency of stepping into the business, of running it day to day, doing it with a family, doing it in a relationship, which we're going to get into because we got to figure out how to keep it happy while running business together because that's no joke. And I love what you said, right? Because when you're showing it, because I can vouch for this as well. I raised money through social media, and it wasn't from asking people to give me money, right? Which a lot of the times when we first hear raise money through social media, we think, okay, so I need to put out a post asking people for money. No, it's exactly what you said. You just need to show them the process. You're essentially building your credibility. You're building your resume with them. And it wasn't something I realized until after I was trying to raise money and I reached out to a few people and they were like, okay, yeah, you can have the money. And I was like, you don't want to ask me more questions? You sure? Like, oh, no, I've just been watching you on social media. I've been seeing everything that you're doing. I love it. I was like, holy crap. Like,
So cool.
I've been doing this for? Yeah, it's so effing cool.
It's so cool.
So I love that you showcase everything and people should really follow that, right? Just, you don't have to be perfect. You don't have to be somebody else. Just show your situation, show your journey, and the world will resonate with it. Whoever it's meant to resonate with, it will resonate. And you said something so, like, I want to emphasize this because it was so cool to me. You said you were getting loud on there because you're on an island and you felt like you were even on a smaller island, right? Which I truly understand that. So like when you said that, I was like, it touched my soul. I was like, oh, right? Because in the beginning, when you're doing this, you will feel alone, and that's just normal, right? You're stepping out of your comfort zone. You're stepping out of the circles of influence you're already a part of. So now, when you're going out there and you're sharing, hey, this is what I'm about. This is what I'm learning. I haven't done it yet, but I'm moving towards it. You're now letting other people know that you're interested, and they might have that same interest, but they're keeping it quiet as well because they're a little nervous. Now you're like this lighthouse guiding them home, right? It's dark out there, the waters are treacherous, but then this lighthouse starts shining and they're like, oh, I can see the way. There are more people, there's safety over there. And then we can gather and collect. So keep on doing that. I love the social media posts. I love it all. And I want to dive into something now. This is really, really serious. Being in a relationship and working in business together, I feel like that can be very stressful. I don't feel like, I know it can be stressful, at least from my past experience of like doing it. Like my girlfriend and I, we actually started this business together. We're still together as far as this, but business wise, we realized we don't work as well together. So what's working for you two? What have you found worked for you two? Or was it something that just naturally clicked and you never had to think twice about it?
Not natural.
Not at all natural. It was a very a learning process, and it took some definite effort to put things in place. So yes. I'll let Tristyn talk about it.
I think the first year we were both doing everything. And so we're marching in the same direction, but we're both butting heads trying to get there. It just made no sense. And I think that's because we were bottlenecking the process because we're both busy doing the same thing, stepping on top of each other. So once we figured that out, and we don't have it all figured out. We're still a work in progress. We're still refining everything and figuring out what each other's like super, super good at. But we started figuring it out. And that is where I do more of the paperwork stuff and I'm more behind the scenes and I'm more talking to contractors and like design, project management. And he is acquisitions, marketing, all of that. So, and once we defined those roles and do our best. I'm not saying every day there's not some overlap because we do come together when he's talking to me about a seller or I ask him for a design idea. There is some overlap, but once we primarily figured out that you stay over here and I'll stay over here, it just helped immensely. It took kind of like this pressure off of us. And and we're able to function appropriately. I think the hardest thing that we're having is, I don't know if you guys can tell, but we're both visionaries. We both are bulls. We both like to kind of be in control and like have ideas and just want to do this all day, you know, but I have more integrator qualities as far as organization and paperwork, even though I don't love it. But me being in that role for now, I think is just helping us. And who knows what, you know, we'll do in a year from now. As we talked before we started the podcast, you know, we're trying to go into some virtual markets and bring on a business partner. So we're excited for the future. But yeah, our roles and having a weekly meeting with each other as to what he's working on, as to what I'm working on, reminding each other of what needs to get done in the business. And not every day is smooth, you know, because we're business partners and we're in a marriage. So knowing when to turn it off, I think is easier for me than it is for him.
I can't ever turn it off. It's difficult. No, but so like she said, we did the same thing the first year and we were just like this. And it spills over into your personal life, right? So when you're like this in your business, it's really hard to turn that off. So we had to figure it out. I think one thing that really helped us was Rocket Fuel. We read Rocket Fuel. It helped us in understanding what a visionary integrator role was. What we realized is that we were both visionaries, right? So it made sense that we were butting heads like this. Right. So we had a choice. We had to figure it out. We had to say, okay, I have no integrator qualities. Like I'm horrible at that stuff. My wife hates doing it, but she's really good at it. She doesn't think she's really good at it and she doesn't enjoy it. That's why, but she can do it and do it at a high level. So we picked lanes. That's all I say.
Yeah.
Okay. These are the 2 lanes. I have to do this and stay here. You do that and stay there. And not only did that like transform our business and catapult us to the next level, but it made this not happen as much. And it reflected on our personal life, which means the most to me because I can be the most successful businessman in the world, right? And make all this money and help all these people. But if I lose the people that I love, then that doesn't mean anything to me, right? So having to figure that out, if you're in a husband, wife relationship, like try and figure that out in the beginning. Like that is important. I think we're consistently learning and getting better and refining, but those like Rocket Fuel, figuring out our lanes really helped us immensely.
That's big. I couldn't agree with you more. Like it took me some time to realize that. It took us some time to realize that. We sat down and recognized much later. I was like, oh, like both of you, we're both visionaries, and it's challenging, right? And I think I've seen a lot of couples get into relationship or into business together and not figure that differentiator out. And then, like you said, it spills over into life. It comes out of the business because then there is no longer this dividing line. You're seeing them at work, and then when it's supposed to be time off, you're still kind of mad about work, and then you're diving back into work the next day, and it just becomes this crazy headache. So I'm happy that you two have figured out something so far as picking the lanes and working. And I love what you said, right? You still hold a meeting with one another, right? Checking in weekly. And it's not just checking in on the business, I imagine. I imagine it's also just checking in with, hey, how are you still feeling with this? How are you feeling with your role? Are you overwhelmed? Are you underwhelmed? Where do we need to move? Where do we need to pivot? And keeping that line of communication open is probably the most important thing ever. So that's super cool to see that you both do that. And you both are definitely visionaries. I love it.
Yeah. So it's like I said, it's a work in progress. But I think what also is helping us is like doing stuff together that's not work. Like playing pickleball, hanging out with the family. Every Thursday night we're at his parents' house and we're just with our kids and with our family. And we try to do pickleball. Everyone says it's an old person sport, but it's so fun. It's
so good.
not an old person sport. We try to do that twice a week, so just doing other things together that you're not thinking about working, you're just having fun, I think is really helping all aspects of our life. And then it only strengthens the business relationship, if that makes sense, and the marriage relationship.
It makes perfect sense. So actually, this is a question I have for both of you, and I'm curious to hear the answer. When it comes to unplugging, right, at those certain times, right, I think one of the hardest things about being an entrepreneur is you now set the clock, right?
Mm-hmm.
You're not working a 9 to 5 where at 5 o'clock, leave, like you're being kicked out of work. We don't want to pay you anymore. Go home, right? Now working for yourself, working on your own, that 9 to 5 doesn't exist anymore. So if you don't create it for yourself, it can get a little squirrely. So what do you do to ensure that you are cutting off time? Do you do like hard stops and then like say, hey, this is family time, like turn the phone off? Or are those lines still heavily blurred?
I think on certain days there's a hard stop, and then on other days it's blurred. So like I said, like on a Thursday, hard stop. Hard stops, it's family time. On like our weekly meeting days, hard stop. It's a constant struggle. You're exactly correct, because as entrepreneurs and in the real estate game, like it's fast paced. You have timelines. You got to be always on top of stuff. But for me, time blocking is something I have to do. Otherwise, I will do nothing, because I'll just sit in this like space of being overwhelmed, and then I'll just like shut down. I'm like, I just can't do anything. So if I just time block, and I know from this time to this time I have to do this, I know it'll get done. You know what I mean? And if I stick to my time block, I feel balanced. If I don't have something time blocked in, I don't feel balanced. So like for me, time blocking is huge, 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 huge.
Yeah, I think being an entrepreneur and the time thing is a blessing and a curse, right?
Mhm.
Because at a 9 to 5, exactly like you said, at 5 o'clock you clock out and you go home, right? A lot of times people are like, yeah, you're an entrepreneur, you have all this time in the world, right? You can set your own schedule. But the hardest thing for me is turning it off.
Mhm.
Like it's hard to turn it off. We get calls back from sellers. I mean, all the time. Like you always have to have your phone on, and when it rings, you always answer that call. So how do you do it, right? So I think it's blurry for me for sure, but luckily in our relationship there's a balance. So like if I'm having to do this work, my wife is there present,
Yeah.
right, with our kids, and for our family.
Yeah.
And vice versa. If she has to work, then I'm the one that's present with the kids, right? So we team up and conquer. I think that's what it is. But time blocking is a major thing for both of us. Definitely setting those things. I'm getting better at hard stops, but it's still blurry, because if a seller calls, I'm jumping on that phone call, no matter what we're doing. So I think for us, we've mapped out our next 5 years, and we understand
It's grind time, baby.
it's grind time. Like this 5 years, we're working and grinding, so we don't have to, right, do that for the next 40 years.
Yeah.
Right. What we can build in this next 5 years, and we see it clearly. We have mapped it out clearly. It's head down, grinding, building, and then relaxing later on in life. So we understand that, and we're aligned with that.
Yeah.
And that's just kind of how it goes.
That is so effing cool, right? Because that right there, what you just said, is what people wish for, right? The clarity, right? Because it's like, like you are certain, right? This is what needs to be done, and you have a plan. And not for nothing, that's what it takes. It truly does take. In the beginning, we might be running around like a chicken with our head cut off, but then at some point we do get our bearings, and it's not perfect, but there is a trajectory. There is a finish line. There's a start point. In between, whatever happens, happens, but we know where we're trudging towards. So that's really cool to hear. So it sounds like you guys are pretty, like you have some core values that are locked in, right? And you're creating this culture on the island for your community and internally this culture for yourselves where family is an important thing. We make these hard stops. And then also through your social media, we see that you have a team of BAs, right? You have essentially you have people that are on your team. So what sort of culture are you instilling for the team? Is it something that's spoken out loud, or is it something that was just kind of put in place once and set and forget?
Yeah, we created it, and it all goes back to what I think our Hawaiian culture is, and it's aloha. And we do meet with our VAs. We see them as part of our team. It's like such a crucial component, but it's aloha. Our company culture is aloha. So, I mean, I can go over what each thing means, but it's kindness, it's unity, it's perseverance, humility, and patience, because all of those things. So akahai is kindness, lokahi is unity, olu olu is being agreeable, gentle, ha'aha'a is humility, and the last A is ahonui, and that's patience. So that's what I send out to our VAs. I said, this is our values, this is our culture, this is how I want us to treat everybody and handle ourselves. And I just set that precedence from the beginning and reiterate it on the calls. And then every time we have a call with our VAs, we end it with declarations, our I am statements, which are pretty fixed, but we add some new ones in every now and again. But yeah, it's so important. And then it builds your team, it builds the character of your team, and it builds you. And if you're not fueling your team, how are you going to grow it and then continually move forward?
You're getting me like hyped up right now.
That's ours.
I'm just like, all right, like, let's go. Like I'm ready to run through a wall. And I know like the people when they're listening to this, they're gonna be like, oh my gosh, like I'm ready to go. Because that culture, it makes a huge difference. And I love what you said, right? It's not an affirmation. You said it's a declaration, right?
Declaration, yes.
Declaring this is who we are, this is who I am, this is how I show up because this is what I am. So I love that part right there. And your team is lucky to have you two leading at the top or leading alongside them, leading with them.
Yes.
That matters big time. And I'm sure that they've expressed their gratitude. And I'm going to express my gratitude for putting that energy out into the world because we need more of it. So, we are rolling up near the end. And I always like to ask these two questions near the end of every show, which are my favorite questions, right? First off, I'm big into reading. So I always know most of the guests that come on enjoy reading as well. Can you name two books, at least just two, but no more than two, that were absolute paradigm shifts for you? And I know you already said Rocket Fuel, so I'm going to pull that one off the table.
Yeah, pull that one off. Let me pull up my book list real quick.
Read them and your mind has like stretched and it never quite went back to being the same. What would you say those books were for you? And it doesn't have to be real estate related. It can be anything.
A big one for me, I'll pick one and then you can pick one. Is that cool? Okay, so a big one for me isn't necessarily real estate related, but it just totally was monumental in my entrepreneurship journey and made me think differently. And it's totally not going to be what anyone thinks, but it was Tax-Free Wealth by Tom Wheelwright. Yeah. And it was because I was at that point where I wasn't able to, hire a CPA. I was doing it on my own, but I was like, how am I going to do our taxes and save money? And people just think it's a tax book. But for me, it really opened my mind to the possibilities of being an entrepreneur and what you can do and the benefits that come along with it. Because saving money is one thing, but keeping it and then why you're keeping it the power of being able to keep it, you know, and then what you can build from doing it that way. So yeah, unexpected but tax-free wealth by Tom Wheelwright. It really was a game changer for me mentally.
I love that. That's such a good one. I agree. Changing that mentality around how you even look at money and the money you keep, and like, oh my gosh, when like you hear like when they ask like, what's your biggest expense, right? And everyone names like, oh, my mortgage, my car note, my right, and then you recognize, oh no, it's taxes. Like I pay it when I get paid. I pay it when I spend. Like it's going out every single time. Like game changer.
Yeah. Yeah. What was yours, babe?
So I have a bunch. Rocket fuel was definitely one that was unreal. But growing up in Hawaii, and I'm a native Hawaiian, from this land, right, from this place, one of the things that always was just lacking, all like, and it's a systematic problem with our education system is financial education, right? So I never learned how money worked. I saw my dad like growing up, he was really poor, but he worked his butt off and he became a very, very, very successful Hawaiian, right? In this like white collar business world, like worked really hard to get there. But he never learned about money through that process. He started making a ton of it, but he didn't know how to manage it, right? So it's a super cliche, but Rich Dad Poor Dad helped me immensely understand how money works. And I've seen it firsthand, right? I've seen my dad make a ton of money in it. And I look back now, I'm like, Dad, if you just put that money into real estate or into a good investment and let that money work for you, you would be a million times ahead, better off now, right? I think that really helped me understand and had a mind like a mindset shift for me. Another one is profit first. So for our business, we were not utilizing that model, and that was a mindset shift as well. And I know it was for her too. We read that book and immediately started implementing, and it really has like changed our business immensely.
You know, it matters, right? Because those mindset shifts are everything. You know, once you change perspective, it's something funny. I've read I'm sure you guys are familiar with Think and Grow Rich, right? By Napoleon Hill, right? And in that book, somewhere in the beginning, he basically tells you like, yeah, you're going to be rereading this book. And essentially when you come back and you read it again, the words will never change, right? The words are locked in stone at this point. However, every time you come back, you change. You're a different version of yourself. So you're going to see in it things that are just brand spanking new. So when your perspective changed, so does the world. So I'm right there with you. You know, watching the generation before us earn a ton of money and not necessarily do anything with it, and realize, huh, you're still in this loop though. You can't actually stop, right? Robert Kiyosaki's definition of wealth, which I like. He says, you know, wealth isn't necessarily how much money you have, right? It's what sort of lifestyle can you maintain if you stopped working, and how long can you maintain it for? If you're earning $1 million, right, but your lifestyle costs you $100,000 a month, well then great, you can only survive for 10 months. That's not really that wealthy. So I'm right there with you. So I know I said I had two questions, but I do have to sneak one more in the middle before I give the last question, because it's something I'm always curious about with people, because I love it. I see the good vibes in the background, by the way. I just noticed that. So, you know, and good vibes are awesome. However, as you both know, it's not always good vibes in the middle of going through it, right? As we're growing and as we're going through the change, you know, we're able to smile and look back on it. But sometimes when we're going through it, we don't necessarily have that same smile on our face as we're encountering just the toughness of it, right? So what has been a challenge that you've both encountered where you're like, it wasn't necessarily pleasurable going through it, but after you got through it, you learned a lesson from it? Like, what was that challenge and what was that lesson?
Oh my gosh, there's so many. One challenge and one lesson.
our first flip.
I know. Well, I automatically go to our first flip too, but like what lesson? There was like a million.
So many lessons out of that, but
Oh, I feel like our first flip was it truly taught us perseverance and truly taught us the power of reaching out. That you do, if you don't have to be alone on the island. You do not. That is a choice. And if we chose to stay on the island, we could have lost a lot of money, and we could have lost um, our ability to sell the house because of permits and stuff that was going on. So that's the lesson I think I want to make sure people know, is that in those hard times that aren't talked about, it's all the, hey, I made this much, and this is how amazing everything is. And that's not all real estate. That's not life. It's like this, right? But as you get stronger and learn those lessons, you stay here no matter what's going on. And you reach out. You are not alone. If we didn't reach out to other contractors to bring them in to help finish the job and speed up the job, and if we didn't reach out to our realtor and get her information, because our first flip went to market right when COVID hit. Literally, our entire community shut down and no one was allowed to do anything the week our house went to market. So it was this very scary time. And there was just so many obstacles, but the perseverance and reaching out and talking to people about what you're going through and not being scared of being judged and what are people going to think? Who cares about all that? Who cares? Reach out and talk to people and get help. That was my biggest lesson.
Yeah, no, I second that 100%. You just did a post on it,
I did.
recently. You just did a story on those struggles,
finding
right?
a solution in every situation.
And always looking for that solution. For me, it's easy to get stuck. It's super easy to get stuck in that negative place. And on our first flip, we learned so many, like I always say, that's like we had a college education in our first flip.
We took
everything
gut check after gut check
that went wrong could have went wrong. It could have went wrong, but guess what? We never lost money on that flip, and we came out that much better, right? So, I mean, in the end, I feel like being perseverant, right? And being able to take all of those knocks, but then not get stuck in them.
Yeah.
Like look for what the solutions are and find those solutions. And like I said, you're just on a slow, steady rise from there. So that was a good one. And I always tell my wife this too. I'm glad that happened.
Oh my gosh, so stoked that happened on the first one.
Because if our first one was peaches and rainbows and roses,
unicorns,
right? And we made $100,000 and nothing went wrong, we would have experienced that on another one down the road, and it could have killed our business. So being able to learn that right up front really set the tone for our business and gave us a jump start.
Wow. I think right now, that's probably the best answer I ever had for that question. You guys
really?
Yeah, seriously, because it reminds me of a conversation I had with a buddy of mine, Charles, out here, right? And he's the #1 flipper on the island, just absolutely crushing it. And that's something he always talks about, right? Because for him, when he got into the business, everyone sees him where he's at now. And it's like, Charles, man, how do I do this? How do I be like you? He's like, listen, go get yourself extremely educated and put yourself through as much as possible, because his first deal didn't come until about, I think, 2.5 years in, right? And he said, listen, if I had gotten my first deal right away, just like the first 2 months in the game, and I made a quick 80K or quick 100K, I would have been shooting myself in the foot, because I would have had this conception in my mind that it's just that easy. So then when it did start to get hard, why would I persist? I would just say, this is broken, it doesn't work anymore, and I'd move on to something else. So there's so much to be had from going through all the tough stuff. And, you know, I'm glad that you both look back and you're able to say, like, I appreciate that. Like, I'm great. I never want to do it again, but I'm grateful that it happened. So that is, heck yeah, I love that. So now, keeping with this final question, let's imagine that you both wake up tomorrow, right? And you're a blank slate, right? You don't remember anything. You don't remember the relationships you built. You don't remember the information you've cultivated. You don't remember the experiences you've had. You don't remember anything. In this case, since it's the two of you, you still like recognize each other. So you wake up and you look at each other and like, all right, she's safe.
She's
like
cool.
he's safe. So it's not like a Saw movie. You're not freaking out for your life, but everything is gone. However, there is one little seed of knowledge in your head, right? One little bit of wisdom that for whatever reason, you're taking it, you're running with it, you're not questioning it. You're just accepting it as truth. And from that point going forward, you're going to rebuild on that foundation of that little seed of knowledge. What would you want that thought to be?
That is such a deep question.
You're like, yes.
Wow. So one piece of knowledge, your blank slate, and one piece of knowledge that sticks.
Mm-hmm.
What would it be? The thing that's like comes to me first, just authentically, is something about just making memories with the people that are important to me. I always think about like, what is life all about? And it's about, for me, cultivating memorable moments in my life. And I know that you can do that in so many different ways. And I don't know if that's wisdom or whatnot, but that's like what just comes up for me. So I'm just going to leave that there.
So for me, I mean, I love that one.
I
That's
feel
awesome.
like that comes from such a pure place, and there has so many layers, right? Like, then if you just lead with that and that's your purpose, it shouldn't matter. There's really no space for negativity in there. That there's only space for positivity, and all the other little stuff, the daily grind stuff that in the big picture doesn't matter, has no space either. Because if you're just about cultivating memorable moments, this path is beautiful. So yeah, that's what sticks.
Love it. Love it.
I love that answer.
I think I mean, it's kind of a segue. And for me, I've often been called Joe Aloha.
Oh my gosh.
So,
you are Joel.
So I freaking love people. Like, I just love human beings in all of their differences and uniqueness, right? So relationships it pops into my head. And I feel like I could build everything off of memorable, authentic conversations and relationships.
100%.
Like, relationships are the key to everything in life, I believe.
They are.
In every single business, that's what's important, right? In personal life, like, relationships are what bring us together. And so that would be like my build. Like, I could build everything off of that.
Yeah.
I love that. You know, like, I love that both your answers are so similar. And I completely agree with you, right? Like, these are now like becoming like some of my favorite answers, because it's true. Like, you would absolutely rebuild everything just by connecting with people, and again, showing up genuine, like building real relationships. I always tell people, you know, it's like, I have a hard time remembering someone if I didn't get to go deep with them. So I don't like fluff conversations, you know, like that pleasantries. It's nice, I understand it. But if I don't get to go deep, it's going to be really hard for you to get logged into my brain long term, you know? So yeah, like, I'm all for that. You guys are awesome. So,
Right on.
people that are now super interested because they're like, oh my gosh, these two are awesome. Like, I want to find them on social media. I want to connect with them. How can they go about finding you and following you?
Yeah. On social media, we post our entire life. It's
Full
at,
transparency.
yeah, it's at Kamohai and Tristyn. So Kamohai and Tristyn, Tristyn. That's where you can find us, DM us. We respond. We're always down to chat and talk story and connect. That's what we're all about. So at Kamohai and Tristyn on Instagram.
Awesome. So I'm going to put that in the description below so people will have an easy time finding that. They'll be able to just click on the link. And guys, if you enjoyed at all what you listened to, if you want to connect, I would say reach out, DM them, let them know what resonated, right? If you're in a relationship and you're in business, reach out and talk to them about maybe what you're going through in your business, in your relationship, and see how you two can find a way to work together or work through some stuff. So, guys, I seriously appreciate you so much for coming on today. I know with our time zone difference, like it was not easy to make it happen. So it means a lot that you would be here, that you would share your experience with the audience. And I wish you the absolute best. I look forward to having you back on the show in the future to see how you've progressed on route to the 5-year plan, to the 5-year goal.
Thank you so much for having us. It was the pleasure.
Yeah, super happy. Like literally, we'd love to do it again. So
yeah,
looking forward to it.
You're amazing. Thanks
Appreciate you.
Appreciate you guys.